Welcome, Mechanically Challenged Development Team. This is the first in many tutorials that I will be recording for you guys. With this tutorial, we're going to be covering how to set up a new project, how to add objects, and make sure that your libraries and dependencies are there. With no other things to go over, let's get started. You'll see that I already have the Visual Studio code open and ready to go. You may have some code loaded. It may end up looking like this. You may have a lot of stuff open. But to clear all that, all you have to do is go to File and Close Folder. That will always take you back to a clean Let's Get Started. To create a new project, we're going to go up here to the W in the top right hand corner. We're going to click it and we're going to select Create a New Project. With this project, you're going to select the project type, which will be template. The language that we'll be programming in is Java, and the robot that we're going to be using is called Timed Robot. The base folder, I suggest that you put it in your Documents folder, so I'm going to click on Select New Project Folder. I'm going to click on Documents, and I'm going to create a folder called 2022 Robot. I'm then going to double click on it and say Select Folder, and so yours should say something similar. It should be users, your username, Documents, 2022 Robot. The project name is whatever you choose to make. In this example, I'm going to be making a project called MC 2022 for Mechanically Challenged 2022. You're welcome to name your project whatever you choose. The team number is going to be 7483, which is our team number. You're not going to enable desktop support at this time, but you are going to say Generate Project. It says that it's been successful. Would you like to open the folder? And yes, in current window. You'll see now that it is actually building a new project for us to work with. As this goes, you'll see more and more code fill up over here on the side. You just need to be patient until it tells you that it's finished with its routine. And as you can see, it says build successful. Terminal will be reused. There are two main forms in this particular project. The main Java, which tells the robot to start robot with our main function, and robot.java, which actually contains the code that we're going to be personally working on. It generates a class called Timed Robot, and inside that class we have a robot.init, which is our initialization. We have a robot periodic, and an autonomous initialization, a teleop initialization, a teleop periodic, a disabled initialization, a disabled periodic, a test initialization, and a test periodic. Each one of these is different types of driving modes. The autonomous, of course, is going to be the code that you write that the robot executes without driver input. Teleop is exactly what it means, teleoperated. That means that it's operated over wire or through wire, or in our case, wirelessly, from the controllers using driver input. We'll have an initialization that'll load all of our functions, and a periodic that's the actual code that runs during the timed robot. We can also set up code for when we are disabled, and we have an initialization and a periodic for that. So you're probably wondering this word that I keep mispronouncing called initialization, what that actually is. And what initialization is it's where you set up everything, where you load everything. Think of it like the Matrix, where you have the white room and you're loading all your guns and everything. That's what initialization is. Periodic is you actually leaving that white room, going into the Matrix, and shooting up Agent Smith. Every function in timed robot has an initialization and then the execution portion, which is called periodic. It's called periodic because it's actually timed. Your autonomous periodic is going to be 15 seconds. Your teleop periodic is going to be 2 minutes and 45 seconds for a total of 3 minutes. You'll see up here in your class that you have some declarations. Declarations are how you import things into the program. In our robot, we're going to need a number of different things. We're going to need a drive type, which in our particular case is going to be differential drive. That means that you have a drive that's basically like a skid steer or a tank. It will be the motors are on both sides and the wheels are controlled independently. So you have a left side and a right side. We're going to need to import a joystick. In our particular case, we're going to be using 2. We'll have a left joystick and a right joystick. The next step will be the cameras. We can, with the processor that we have built into the robot, we can serve 2 cameras. There are 2 USB ports. In our case, we'll probably do a forward-facing camera for John to drive and an upward-facing camera so that he could see how the shots are going. With the camera, you're going to need a video server. In our particular case, we're going to use video sync. You'll need a timer to tell you how long things have executed for. We've talked about this before, where you have between 0 and 1, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, so on and so forth. Finally, you're going to need to set up triggers. That's outside of today's tutorial, so let's get started. So the easiest way to add an object is to just start typing. So when you highlight, in my case, it's going to be line 22. When you put your cursor on line 22, you'll notice that it's lined up at the beginning of the line. We want to contain our code in a way that we have formatting so that we could tell that this public class contains these objects. If it was lined up perpendicular to the line, all the way butted up, it would look like a run-on sentence and we wouldn't be able to tell what's what. So the easiest way to do that is to use the tab key on the keyboard, and that'll automatically advance us and line us up perfectly with the line above. All of these objects are going to be private. We're not making anything global. Global objects are objects that any program, any part of the robot can access. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why don't I make that global and then I could just use it everywhere? Well, the problem is that if we decide we want to have a AI that does some kind of targeting or aiming or color matching, and we make that global, then it would consume it. And then if John decided he needed to use the camera for something else, you're going to have a conflict of interest. So instead, we'll make the objects private to timed robot, and then if we have an AI section that we decide to code using something like Lightspeed or PhotoVision or one of the other libraries, then we could take it and make that private as well to it and have each portion segregated. You rarely, if ever, want to use global. So for today, we're going to call it a private, and we're going to declare our drive type. In this case, as I said before, we're going to do differential drive. And you can see that it's automatically popping up a list of items below as I start to type. There's differential drive with odometry. There's differential drive with kinematic constraints. There's pose estimators and voltage constraints and wheel speeds and drivetrain simulators and blah 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 blah. We just want vanilla differential drive. After you declare the object that you're going to use, you can hit the enter key, arrow down to the one you want, and press enter. It'll automatically fill it out for you. You can also see that it declared our library up here that we just picked automatically. By hitting enter, it created the library. The next step is to give it a name. Our differential drive, in this particular case, I'm going to call it M for mobile, and then my robot. Once again, these variable names can be whatever you choose. We had somebody make it Spedlana. We've had some people make it Tank. We've had some people name it some very questionable things that I will not repeat in this particular video. Regardless, we're going to use my robot for this example. The next thing we want to declare, is our joystick. So I'm going to call private joystick. You can see that it automatically declared our library up here. And we're going to have a M left, and a private joystick that we're going to call M right stick. In this particular case, those names are actually important because they tell us which stick we're going to be using. You can do the shortened name if you don't want to type it out constantly. That's up to you, but the autocomplete will show you, will always complete it for you. The next thing we have are the USB cameras. You can see once again, our library was added up above. So question, I just added camera 1. In your code, what would you do to add camera 2? The answer is you would come over here, tab over, private that bad boy out, USB camera, and camera 2. The next thing that we need to add is the timer. We're going to have this, we're going to make public. The reason why we're going to make it public is so that it can be accessed by other functions inside Timed Robot. The timer is not going to be, so there are 3 levels. There's private, which means only mine. It's kind of like Golem and his Precious. Public, which is like you in a room talking out loud about your favorite band, and other people are around able to listen to your conversation, and you don't really care. You want everybody to hear it. In that same sense, we want everybody in our Timed Robot room to be able to access the timer to know what time it is. it's going to be final because there's only going to be one instance of this particular object. It's a timer because it's a timer. Its name is going to be M timer, and we're going to initialize that to a new timer object. Now, why did we initialize this when we didn't initialize anything else? The reason why is because these are hardware, and hardware is its own initialization. You're plugging something into something. The timer, we're initializing to say we're going to start this timer off and it's going to start at 0. So we're not giving it any value. We're making it a new timer, and we're establishing our timer as such. With that, I'm going to stop here for this particular tutorial. I would like for you guys to follow along, create your own code, and be ready to talk about it on Tuesday. Thank you.